As part of this, though, not all of our teaching has remained synchronous. In other words, lots of our teaching is no longer done with people listening live. We're instead recording things ahead of time and then letting students access that when they want. And part of the reason for that is that in the changed conditions, lots of people might not be available all the time throughout the day to attend a live session. So having these sort of asynchronous sessions has lots of advantages and makes things a lot more equal as well for students. So every discipline has had to adapt to this in very different ways, and I don't think it's fair to say that anyone's had it easier or harder, but we've all had to do different things to make this work, and I'm sure this is sounding very familiar to what everyone in schools has been having to deal with recently. So I think you can see us now as well.
Yes.
Excellent.
Camera's working.
Excellent. So we might have some little demonstrations towards the end.
Excellent.
Next
slide?
Yeah. So you can see I'm not even monitoring my own chat, I even get to just do a slide wave as well.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really, I think I need this in more classes as well, if you ever want to come along there.
I can also plant questions if no one's willing to put questions in the chat.
We need an Ellen in every lecture, I think. So when faced with trying to put lots of these maths classes online, I was starting to think about what challenges we were really facing, and to me I think one of the biggest things is that maths is very visual in the sense that it has lots of diagrams and sketches, and these are things that I think are nice seen done live. We don't like looking at a static diagram in a book as much as we like seeing someone draw it and explain all the little bits as we're going through, and that's kind of what I've hinted at here in point number 2, that and also in maths we just really like working through things together. Even though TV and movies tells us that we're all isolated, writing on windows by ourselves, really the experience of maths is that we talk about it and share things. And when you're trying to communicate through email or a text chat, you kind of lose a bit of this sense of sharing stuff like that. And part of this challenge as well is that in maths we have so many characters that aren't even found on keyboards. So you can sometimes get away with typing out some maths, but it's not really fun and it doesn't look like the maths that we are used to doing. It's not a maths experience, which is my phrase for describing this. So while emails and discussion boards can go some of the way of replacing our interactions, they're not really good, I think, at replicating a lot of what I think of as a real maths experience, some interaction between people like that. So I think we'll go to our next slide. Cool. So obviously all of us had to solve these problems very, very quickly to get things working and keep our teaching going. In fact, we pretty much switched overnight from teaching in classrooms to teaching online, and
we had a week to get everything online.
So it was a very, very rapid transformation, and lots had to be done quickly. And so we were looking for some nice solutions to trying to overcome some of the challenges that we knew would be facing, and I have ended up addressing lots of these by using a tablet. So I've got my iPad here that we might have a look at in just a moment. I'm going to talk about some of the ways I've been using this iPad to try and replicate our interactions, and again remembering we're trying to somehow do this asynchronously but still feel like we're having a nice conversation with people about some ideas, some maths. So what I really wanted to do on this iPad is somehow be able to record the writing, drawing and talking about maths in some way that we could share with students. And if you start looking into this, there are all sorts of apps and software that you can use to overcome this problem. And if you'd seen us here playing around, mainly Ellen again, playing around with the software getting this webinar going, you can see that very quickly some of these solutions become quite complex. And given that we really want to be teachers, not producers or broadcasters, we just want very, very simple solutions. And then the other thing that was on my list of thinking is that you don't want this to be a very expensive solution either. So a lot of the apps out there or other solutions involve some sort of online storage and live streaming and ongoing fees to pay for all of this. And it would be nice if we could just have a smaller one-off fee that you could pay to get some software to solve your problem, and then you never have to think about it again, and you don't have to keep paying to use it. So while you can get more and more features and do more and more interesting live broadcasting, we don't really feel like we need that in some ways, that we can substitute that with some of our other existing tools like Zoom or other software, and then use some of our apps that are more tailored to replicate our maths experience.
Cool. Next slide.
Next slide, I think. So maybe at this point I should say this is definitely not sponsored content. I never get to do this. I'm not much of an influencer on any of my social media. Well, at least I try to, but it's mainly just me saying silly things and then no one ever acknowledging it. So I'm certainly not sponsored, but I really want to promote two of the apps that I think are really useful to getting started in some of this sharing of material. And one of them's simpler and is really quick to get started with, and I think that's its biggest advantage. And then the other has a few more features and takes a bit longer to learn, but you can achieve a lot more with it. So the first app here is called Vittle, and I've got a link up here on the slides where you can have a look at their homepage. So there's a few different versions for this, and I mainly use the standard version, which was only about $15, so it's not too expensive to get going. You can also try out the free version though if you just want to get a feel for how this works. And what's so good about Vittle is that it is just like using a whiteboard in the classroom. You open it up, you press record, and then you just start writing. And as you write and speak, everything's recorded, and you can directly share your little video with students. So you can email it straight out of the app, or you can save it for use later on. And it's really nice being able to access both of those features, because sometimes you might want to make some content for the classroom, so you can sit down and record a video that you've thought out. But sometimes someone just emails you and says, I'm working on the homework and I can't figure out what this should be. You can open this up and just write to them and send it straight off, and it's a really nice way to communicate like that. And I think it feels just like you're, again, having one of these live interactions, even though we're doing things asynchronously. So Ellen, you should remind me how we're going with time here so I don't just prattle on too much.
We've still got a little bit of time if you want to do a demonstration.
I think
about another 5 minutes.
That's good.
Yep.
Maybe I'll just briefly mention our other app, and maybe we'll get to see both of them. But the other fancy version, if you want to get into some more advanced animation and editing, is an app called Explain Everything that has an education version called Explain EDU. So the link's here as well if you want to have a look at that. Again, no ongoing fees. It's a one-off payment, about $20, so quite affordable as well. But we can do some nice things that you can't do on the standard version of Vittle, like import PDFs or videos. And this is really nice if you want to look at, say, marking up slides or even assignments. You can grade assignments in the app like this. So I think our next slide was to remind us to do some demonstrations, but maybe we'll have a go at that now.
Sure thing.
So I'm going to do my best to show you what I'm working on here, but you can shout out in the comments and bug Ellen if things aren't looking too clear. It's going to be hard to show all of the features like this over a camera. We know we've got this limitation, but hopefully you can see the gist of what's going on here. So this is my Vittle app open here, and maybe you can see as we slide through, I've been making quite a few of these little recordings just over the last few weeks even. But we're going to have a look here at how you could very quickly just make a new one to, say, address some student question. So I'm just going to hit add up the top here and open it up, and I just have a blank screen. Now if I want to start recording, I can just hit record here. I've got my Apple Pencil. So again, I should try not to promote, but this is
Samsung pencils are also acceptable.
It's a generic pencil that I'm using here. I can just start writing on the screen, and it's going to struggle to come through a little bit there, but you can see we're just writing here. And this app would be recording everything that I am writing and saying. So I'm doing a bad handwriting job writing upside down now, but it means that I could just explain something like this, annotating on this whiteboard, and then when I'm finished, I can just hit stop, and then share that straight out of the app here. And the students then are almost standing next to you, watching you work on a whiteboard.
So it creates the video for you, basically.
It does absolutely everything like that, and
cool.
This is what's so neat about it, that if you get this, I promise you 5 minutes later you'll share your first video. So there's no reading a manual, there's no anything like that. This is working on a whiteboard, but in a way that you can very quickly share. So I think it's a really nice app for this purpose here as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You can also just then save it straight onto your tablet as well, and I've been doing a lot of this because then we save it and upload it to some learning management system, so students can have a look at your videos there as well. And once again, the app's taking care of everything, so everything's just, you export a video and then it's ready to go there.
Cool.
So if you want to get into the world of making some recordings, if you go online, people are going to tell you to go out and buy a microphone and a high resolution camera and a green screen and all sorts of other equipment.
Yeah.
I think if you have this app, you'll be doing it straight away. So it's really nice like that. If we aren't running out of time,
yeah, we've got another minute.
Yeah, quickly just illustrate a slightly more advanced app. So when you're playing around with your Vittle for a while and be making some videos, but you start to think you'd like to get into things a bit more, you can use this Explain Everything app. So just open it up here. And what's nice about it is that you can import things into the app. I should be wiggling around here.
I haven't mirrored the screen because it's on a recording, but that's making me make mistakes with the camera operation.
Yeah,
so this is why you need a simple app. You don't need a fancy camera.
Yeah, we're giving you nice live demonstrations of all of our principles here.
Exactly. I'm a chemist. I should be good at spatial reasoning. I'm not.
I should have watched more Mr. Squiggle, and then I'd be better at writing upside down here on this app.
Yeah.
What I really like is that you can import files like PDFs or even PowerPoint presentations straight into the app. So if you have made, say, some slides on some area, you can load it straight into Explain Everything, and it will set it up as separate pages with the slides. And then you can just hit record and annotate as you speak right on top of those slides, and once again export a video ready to share straight out of the app. So it's again a really great way of kind of having that feeling of being there with someone as you explain something. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate here. If I just hit new and then load a file, here I have a piece of homework that I put together the other day, and it just appears here in the app, and I'm just going to straighten it up. So my example here was if you wanted to mark some work by a student, you can load it straight into the app here, and it's going to be a bit hard to see on the screen, but this is a piece of maths that someone has handwritten and scanned in. They made a few mistakes here. You can just hit record down the bottom, and it will record everything you say and everything that you write. So rather than getting some static piece of feedback, the student's almost sitting down with you and having you talk about what they've done. You can highlight the nice parts and give them some advice for things they should work on. And I wanted to show this example because even now, as we start to relax some of our restrictions on teaching, and of course in schools we're seeing more students come back into the classroom, and universities are having some of the restrictions relaxed as well. I think an approach like this would be really useful to learn and keep doing, even when you had students back around, because you could have all their assignments straight on your tablet. You can open them up, annotate them as a little video with some speech, and send them straight back. So these are skills that aren't just really useful for this online teaching we're currently in. They're skills that you will potentially keep using indefinitely into the future as part of your teaching. And even though this might seem like quite a change if you haven't done something like this before, once you have a go and see how easy it really is to share some maths like this through an app, I think you'll just never give it up because it makes things so much easier to work with and gives you such a nice interaction with your students as well.
All right, next slide.
Well, that's our demonstration, which handily put a demonstration slide in there to tell us. And which brings us pretty much to the end of the presentation. I think we're almost going to be out of time soon.
We are indeed. Just addressing the question in the chat, I've answered it in chat as well, but we are recording this and we are going to put it up on YouTube, and the YouTube recording should hopefully have a higher res version of the iPad pictures as well, so I'm happy to send those out too.
It could be useful, but I think more so than our demonstrations, as long as you've got, I think, some direction to look in.
Yeah.
So when I started getting into this area, maybe I'm a bit pedantic, and I just decided I'd try out every single app that I could find and compare all the features, and hopefully what this can do for everyone watching is give you a nice place to start. You might want the easy start, and then you can move on to something a bit more complicated.
Exactly.
So I think we should perhaps wrap up, and I think I've kind of covered here all of our outcomes nicely as well.
Yeah.
Just to add that we of course have different software and different tablets we can use, so feel free to find your favourites.
Exactly. We've got a question in the chat. What file types can the feedback app use?
To import things, I think my question would be. Explain everything can almost do anything.
Oh, cool.
Don't try bringing in some document format from the early 90s, but all the Microsoft formats, so anything out of the Office sort of suite, PDFs and images like that. So you'd be hard pressed to find someone who can beat you up with a document format like that.
Cool.
Which means that someone will.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very, very flexible, and that's what it's so nice for, because you can just put anything in. You can even load a web browser in it as well and show a website.
Oh, cool.
So you can.
That's handy.
There's almost anything you would want to do. You can get through with the app there like that.
That's really handy. If anybody has any other questions, please do drop them in the chat. If not, we've got a couple more minutes if you want to type any in. But in the meantime, thank you very much for sharing, Hayden. That's very much appreciated. I just want to quickly plug our upcoming webinars. If this is the first time you viewed one of them or participated in them, we're running these webinars most weeks. So on Thursdays and Mondays, we've got things aimed at students. Tomorrow we're doing a student experience where we're talking to environment students. So if you've got any students particularly interested in environmental science, I'd encourage them to check that out. On Monday, we've got something I'm really excited about. We have a student who's very good at observational drawing. She's had some work published in the student magazine and a few other things, and she's going to be doing a little intro to drawing in STEM because it's actually a very, very useful skill. So we're aiming that at high school students, but teachers can absolutely tune in as well, so I'd recommend you check that out. And for the maths teachers, we've got a couple of other maths teacher PDs coming up later this month as well, or not this month, in late June and early July. So those aren't on the website yet, but please do keep an eye out for them. If you want to take a look at any of our other webinars, that's the link to go to, flinders.edu.au/webinars. You can register there for any of the webinars that take your fancy. And if you want to go on our mailing list, if you're not already, please contact us at stem@flinders.edu.au. If you've got any other questions, now is a very good time to drop them in the chat. In the meantime, Hayden, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'd like to come along to beautiful mathematical objects, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I think that one's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, who have you got presenting that?
Kirsty Chalker, one of the tutors.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to get in touch with us, that's the number to call, 7221-8661, or you can email us at stem@flinders.edu.au. Other than that, if you've got any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But thank you very much for joining us. We hope that was interesting.